Have you ever wondered how quickly a night you thought was perfect can twist into something unrecognizable? I never imagined I'd find out at my own graduation party. The air was thick with the scent of summer blooms and cheap cologne. Music thumped softly in the background, barely masking the quiet undercurrent of tension that seemed to pulse between the guests. I watched from the balcony, clutching a glass of soda that had long gone flat, as Evelyn Hart laughed with Dante Rivera near the pool. She looked like she always did, confident, untouchable. But there was a flicker in her eyes, something hesitant, that made my chest tighten. Clara Hart drifted through the crowd with her usual effortless charm. Everyone noticed her, naturally, but there was a subtle sharpness to her smile tonight, a kind of quiet calculation I hadn't seen before. Lucas Flynn lingered at the edge of the group, quiet, observing, almost like he could see the invisible strings everyone else was dancing on. Jade Moreno was fussing with the table arrangements, muttering under her breath about spilled drinks and missing napkins. I could see the tension radiating off her, the small, precise movements hinting at more than just party perfectionism. Tara Blake hovered nearby Evelyn, her face pale, lips pressed tightly together as if she already knew something was about to break. I stepped closer to Maya Cross, who was nervously sipping punch by the stairs. Her wide eyes darted from shadow to shadow, taking in details everyone else ignored. I felt a strange comfort in her unease. It mirrored my own. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking of glasses. It all felt fragile, like it could shatter with the slightest provocation. And then I heard it, a faint splash near the pool. I froze. The music blurred into a low hum. Evelyn's laughter cracked like glass across the patio. Dante's eyes widened. Even Clara's composed facade faltered for a heartbeat. Something had fallen into the water. Or someone. No one moved immediately. The night had shifted subtly, irreversibly. And in that moment, I realized, none of us knew what we were about to face. Have you ever noticed how sound can change the world in an instant? One scream can make the air heavier, make your heartbeat audible in the silence that follows. I had just taken a step closer to the pool when it happened. A sharp, high-pitched scream cut through the soft thrum of music. My stomach lurched. I froze, unsure whether to run or move toward the noise. Tara Blake's face went ashen as she pointed toward the water. I saw it then. The surface was no longer reflecting the party lights. It was a deep, unnatural red. My pulse jumped, and my breath caught in my throat. Evelyn Hart's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide and unseeing. Dante Rivera took a hesitant step back, and Lucas Flynn's expression was unreadable. But there was tension coiled like a spring in his shoulders. Jade Moreno dropped the tray of untouched appetizers, the crash startling everyone. Yet no one moved to console her. Even Maya Cross, normally the quiet observer, gasped and stumbled backward. The crowd froze, the laughter and chatter vanishing like smoke. I could feel it then. The night had changed. The atmosphere felt heavier, each heartbeat booming louder in the sudden silence. I thought I caught Clara Hart's lips twitch in the faintest smile. But was it relief? Or something darker? I stepped closer, compelled despite the dread gnawing at me. The pool's edge was still, but the reflection of lights on the red surface made my stomach churn. A subtle movement rippled beneath the blood-like sheen. Something or someone was there, just below visibility, and my mind screamed possibilities I didn't want to entertain. Mouth shut, bodies rigid. We all waited. And then, Dante uttered softly, almost to himself, Who's missing? A shiver ran down my spine. That one question carried a weight heavier than the panic in our eyes. And in that pause, that pregnant silence, I realized none of us were safe. None of us knew what the night had planned. Have you ever realized how silence can reveal more than noise ever could? How a pause, a held breath, can expose truths no one dares to speak. I edged closer to the pool, my shoes whispering against the wet tiles. The red surface shimmered under the faint glow of the string lights, hiding something sinister beneath its calm. Tara Blake clutched my sleeve, her fingers icy, trembling. Not from the chill, but from fear I could feel pressing against the back of my neck. Lucas Flynn knelt near the edge, peering into the depths. His voice was low, deliberate. "It's not just blood. It's something left behind." I caught the glow of unease in his eyes, something tightly wound beneath his calm exterior. Then came a sound, soft, deliberate footsteps behind the group. Maya Cross stepped forward cautiously, her gaze fixed on the shadows near the hedge. I followed her line of sight and froze. A tall figure moved just beyond the light's reach, impossibly still, yet unervingly deliberate. Jade Moreno muttered harshly, "No one move. Just don't move." Her hands shook violently as she pointed toward the back gate. She had always been meticulous, controlling every detail. But tonight, she looked small, fragile, exposed. And then Evelyn Hart's voice cut through the tension, quiet but edged with panic. "It's her. It has to be Clara." My stomach sank. I wanted to protest, but the words died in my throat. Something in Evelyn's tone, the sharp inhale, the tremor, told me she wasn't lying. Dante Rivera's jaw clenched as he stepped between Evelyn and the hedge. "Wait, stop. Let's think," he said. Though his voice betrayed panic he didn't want to admit. "If Clara's out there, what else is hiding with her?" I glanced around. Everyone's face was tight, taut with fear. But in that moment, I realized it wasn't just fear. It was suspicion. And suspicion spreads faster than panic. A sudden splash echoed again from the pool, closer this time. My chest tightened. Something stirred beneath the surface, just enough to break the faint reflection of lights. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the pool went still again. The image by the hedge had gone. But in the quiet, heavy with anticipation, I knew one thing. Someone wasn't telling the truth. And whoever it was, they were closer than any of us imagined. Have you ever realized how quickly trust can crumble when silence grows too heavy? Tonight I understood it. The air felt heavier, denser, like every breath carried questions we weren't ready to answer. I noticed Dante Rivera leaning against the railing, jaw tight, hands curled into fists. He wasn't just observing anymore, he was calculating, measuring who would crack first. Evelyn Hart's voice trembled, but she tried to steady it. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," she sighed out, almost to herself. The words hit me differently than any scream could. They were raw, fractured, impossible to ignore. Tara Blake stepped closer, voice barely audible. "Why would anyone?" She stopped. Her gaze fell on the pool, her eyes wide as if the water itself held a confession. I felt my stomach churn. She wasn't asking a question. She was realizing an answer she didn't want to admit. Lucas Flynn shifted uneasily, rubbing the back of his neck. "We've been looking at this all wrong," he muttered. His tone carried the weight of someone who had glimpsed the truth but couldn't say it aloud yet. Maya Cross, usually so timid, took a step forward, pointing toward the staircase leading to the upper deck. "I saw someone leave, right before the scream. They weren't alone." Her voice was firm now, a mix of fear and clarity. Jade Moreno's face paled, and she stumbled back, clutching the railing. "No, that can't be," she sighed out. Every carefully controlled detail she prided herself on had slipped through her fingers in a single moment. And then it happened. Evelyn's hand went rigid as she pointed across the yard. "It's her," she said, barely above a breath. I turned slowly, and there on the stone path was Clara Hart, standing perfectly still, drenched, her expression unreadable. But the pool, it didn't match what we thought. There was blood, but not enough to belong to her. I felt a chill, not the usual shiver, but a sinking, gnawing unease. Someone had planned this, and it wasn't meant to end with a scream. Not yet. And in that suffocating silence, I understood the cruelest truth. The night was far from over, and the game had only just begun. Have you ever noticed how quickly fear can sharpen your senses? How every sound, every movement, carries a warning you can't ignore. Tonight I felt it fully. Clara Hart moved suddenly, her steps deliberate but silent, heading toward the garden gate at the far end of the yard. My chest tightened. I wanted to call out, but the words stuck in my throat. Something about her movement was different, calculated, controlled, yet urgent. Tara Blake grabbed my arm, her grip firm. "We have to follow," she whispered. I nodded, though my stomach twisted with dread. Every instinct screamed to stop, to hide, to stay far away, but curiosity pulled me forward. Dante Rivera led the way, eyes scanning every corner, every exit. His calm mask was cracking. I could see the tension pulling at his shoulders. Behind us, Lucas Flynn stayed close, quiet, his gaze tracking Clara with a precision that made my skin crawl. Maya Cross ran past us, her voice tight with fear. "She's heading for the alley by the fence," she shouted. And for a moment, I thought I heard her stumble, but she didn't fall. Somehow, she kept moving, driven by a mixture of panic and resolve. I followed, heart pounding, watching the back of Clara's drenched jacket diminish around the corner. The garden that had seemed so familiar moments ago now felt like a trap. Every step I took made the night feel heavier, more suffocating. Then it happened. Clara stopped abruptly. I skidded to a halt behind her. She turned slowly, not running, just standing, watching us. Her eyes weren't afraid. They were cold, assessing, almost amused. My stomach sank. Something was unfolding that none of us understood. Dante sighed out harshly. "This isn't about the pool. It's about her." His voice was sharp, trembling, and carried a weight I couldn't ignore. And then, in the stillness, I realized, the scream, the blood, the chaos, it wasn't the end. It was the invitation. Clara stepped forward one pace, then another, and stopped at the edge of the fence. She raised her hand, pointing back at the house. "Look closer," she said softly, almost taunting. And in that moment, I understood we weren't just chasing a person. We were chasing the truth, and the truth was far more dangerous than any of us had imagined. Have you ever realized how close danger can be before you even notice it? How someone standing right in front of you can hold the answers and the threat, all at once? Clara Hart didn't move when we approached. She stayed by the fence, her wet hair plastered to her face, her eyes sharp and unyielding. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. This wasn't just a chase anymore, this was a reckoning. Tara Blake stepped forward first, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "Clara, tell us what's happening," she said. The words sounded smaller than they should have, almost swallowed by the tension hanging between us. Dante Rivera's jaw tightened. He looked at Clara like he had finally connected dots that didn't make sense before. "You set this up," he said quietly, and I could see him struggling to hold back the storm inside him. "It wasn't an accident." Clara's lips curved. Not quite a smile, not quite a smirk. "Accident?" she boomed, her tone flat, chilling. "You don't understand. None of you do." Lucas Flynn finally spoke, his voice low, deliberate. "Then show us. Show us the truth." He didn't take a step closer, but the command in his tone made it impossible to ignore. Clara raised a hand, pointing toward the pool. My stomach dropped. The red water, still unsettling, now revealed a corner I hadn't noticed before. A floating object partially hidden beneath the surface. My throat tightened. "Look carefully," she said, voice calm, almost serene. "It's not what you think." I peered closer. Blood shimmered on the surface, but there was movement beneath. Something alive, or at least recently alive. And then I saw it. A bag, heavy, swaying gently. Something inside shifted. My heart stopped. Tara Blake sighed out sharply. Is she in there?" Her voice cracked, the terror finally spilling through her carefully contained panic. Clara shook her head slowly. "No, not yet." And in that pause, that pregnant silence, I realized the truth was worse than any of us had imagined. Clara hadn't just orchestrated chaos. She had rewritten reality for the night. I took a step back. Everything felt heavier, slower. The air pressed down on us, thick with dread. "Stay calm," Dante said, though I could hear the tremor in his voice. "We need to think." But thinking felt impossible. The world had narrowed to the pool, to Clara, and to the question that had been lurking all night. Who will be the next to fade? Have you ever felt the moment where everything finally makes sense, yet the relief carries a weight heavier than fear itself? Tonight I found it. Clara Hart stood motionless by the fence, her drenched hair clinging to her shoulders, but there was no malice in her eyes now, only a quiet resignation. I felt my knees weaken, not from exhaustion, but from the tension finally beginning to unravel. Tara Blake took a cautious step forward, her lips trembling. Why did you do it?" Her voice was fragile, yet every word demanded the truth. Clara's gaze swept across the pool, Dante Rivera, Lucas Flynn, and even Maya Cross, who had stayed silently at my side. "It wasn't supposed to end this way," she murmured, her tone almost hollow. "But some secrets, some betrayals, can't go unpunished." I finally understood. The blood in the pool, the staged chaos, the absence. It was all a warning, a test of loyalty, of honesty. Clara had uncovered lies, jealousy, and betrayal among the people she trusted most. Dante stepped closer, voice firm. "Enough games. The authorities are on their way. It's over, Clara." Her shoulders slumped, the first crack in her resolve. Slowly, she nodded. "I wanted them to see. I wanted everyone to understand what happens when trust is broken." Lucas Flynn exhaled sharply, his tension easing. "And now they do." We moved toward the house together, the pool behind us reflecting only calm water this time. No blood, no terror, just the evidence of lessons painfully learned. Officer Simon Hale arrived moments later, taking statements, guiding Clara into custody. Tara Blake whispered to me, voice small, "It's finally over." And it was. The night had tested us all, peeling back layers of pride, jealousy, and deceit. But justice had been served. Clara would answer for the chaos she orchestrated, and the truth about the twins, the rivalry, the secrets, would finally come to light. I looked around at the group, everyone shaken but alive, and realized something. Even in the darkest moments, understanding and accountability could bring closure. The fear, the tension, the suspicion, it had all led to this reckoning. And as I stepped away from the pool for the last time, I knew this night would linger in memory. Not as terror, but as a reminder that truth always finds a way. If you want more stories that grip you, unravel secrets, and deliver justice, subscribe to The Veil of Secret.